You can always tell when a man is bored, not because he announces it. Men rarely confess anything that exposes how flimsy their attention spans truly are. You see it in the subtle decay of his presence, the slow erosion of effort, the way his energy recedes like a coward retreating from a battlefield he never intended to win. The tragedy is that most women convince themselves that this erosion is something else: stress, timing, life, work, anything except the truth. Men who are serious do not vanish into the shadows. Only bored men do. And if you learn to see that shift early, you save yourself from the emotional taxation that eats through your self-respect like acid. You're not here because you enjoy fairy tales. You're here because you want clarity, the kind most people avoid because clarity ruins illusions. Illusions are warm. Clarity is cold. Illusions keep you hopeful. Clarity keeps you powerful. But you already suspect that power serves you better than hope ever has. So let's begin with the one truth. Every woman should tattoo onto her psyche. Men show their seriousness not in how they pursue you, but in how they maintain their pursuit after the initial dopamine rush wears off. Anyone can perform grand gestures in the beginning. Even the most unimpressive man can mimic romance for a few weeks. It requires no skill, no investment, no strategy. It's cheap theatrics, and men are masters at it when they believe you're worth the temporary performance. The real assessment begins the moment the performance stops feeling thrilling to him, because that's when his true nature leaks through the cracks. You want to know if he's serious or bored. Watch him after he becomes comfortable. Comfort is a truth serum. It loosens masks. It dissolves the little courtesies. It reveals where his loyalty actually lies, whether it's with you or with the rotating cast of distractions he keeps as emotional insurance. A serious man simplifies his world. A bored man expands it with pointless noise. The reason this matters is because bored men are dangerous in the way children with fire are dangerous. Not out of malice, but out of carelessness. They don't think about what they burn. They don't even notice the smoke. A woman who misinterprets boredom for seriousness is essentially agreeing to be collateral damage for a man who hasn't thought deeply about anything since the last time he played video games in his mother's basement. If this offends you, good. Offense is the first sign your self-respect is waking up. Now, let's address the delusion that women cling to when they sense a man drifting. Many of you are trained, socially, culturally, romantically, to believe that if you adjust your behavior, become softer, more patient, more understanding, he will come back. But men do not return to women who lower their standards for them. They return to women who hold their standards like a knife, pressed lightly against the throat of his ego. And before you mistake that for aggression, understand it's simply gravity. Standards create gravitational pull. A woman with high standards becomes a force. A woman without them becomes an option. But this is where your real problem begins. Bored men behave just convincing enough to make you second-guess yourself. They reply just enough. They call just enough. They pretend to care just enough. They give you sprinkles of attention like nutritional crumbs to keep you from leaving entirely. This is not affection. It's maintenance. Maintenance of a safety net. Men keep women around the way kings kept food cellars full. Not because they planned to feast, but because it was convenient to know they could. If a man is serious, his attention stabilizes. It doesn't evaporate when his mood shifts or when a new distraction enters his orbit. The hallmark of seriousness is consistency, not intensity. Intensity is easy. Intensity is a performance. Intensity is a man showing you fire because he knows you'll be impressed by the spectacle. Consistency is different. Consistency is firewood. It's quiet, steady maintenance. It requires discipline. Only serious men possess discipline. Bored men have impulses. They don't maintain fires. They drift toward the next spark. This difference is more than poetic. It's biological. According to a 2019 study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, people who are genuinely invested in a connection exhibit predictable patterns of communication and emotional availability, regardless of external stressors or novelty. Predictability is not dullness. It's commitment expressed through behavior rather than promises. A bored man cannot maintain those patterns because a bored man is always scanning the horizon for the next microdose of stimulation. Now let's dissect the most common mistake women make when evaluating seriousness, assuming that effort equals intention. It doesn't. Effort is just energy. Intention is direction. A man can invest energy in you without intending to build anything with you. That's why you see so many women confused by men who text them all day, but never plan a future. He enjoys access to your mind, your attention, your softness. But he has no desire to anchor himself to you. This is the male equivalent of window shopping. All admiration, no purchase. You know he's serious when his actions form a pattern. Not when they spike. Not when they peak. Patterns reveal truth. Peaks reveal performance. And if you find yourself constantly analyzing his peaks, those rare, intense moments where he's suddenly affectionate, present, charming, understand that you're being conditioned by inconsistency. Inconsistency is not romance. Inconsistency is psychological bait. It keeps you reaching for the high that only appears after long stretches of confusion. A bored man uses inconsistency to maintain your investment while minimizing his own. He gives you just enough certainty to keep you emotionally suspended, but never enough to relax. He creates a confusing rhythm that keeps you off balance. And off balance is where women make their worst decisions. Off balance is where they justify. Off balance is where they defend him to their friends. Off balance is where they betray themselves. A serious man does the opposite. A serious man creates equilibrium. You don't question his intentions because he doesn't give you space to question them. His energy doesn't come in waves. It doesn't spike. It doesn't rest. It stays. It's the staying that matters, not the spark. Sparks are cheap. Staying is rare. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Many women choose bored men because boredom masquerades as mystery. His distance feels intriguing. His inconsistency feels like a puzzle. His lack of clarity feels like depth. It isn't depth. It's emotional illiteracy, dressed up as personality. There is nothing mysterious about a man who cannot commit emotionally. He's not enigmatic. He's not complex. He's not hard to read. He's just hollow. And hollowness has a very distinct behavioral signature. A hollow man fills his silence with distractions, not decisions. He relies on the woman's imagination to interpret his vagueness as something meaningful. Serious men do not weaponize vagueness. Only bored men do. Vagueness is a shield. It protects them from responsibility while keeping you invested enough to supply them with attention, validation, and emotional labor. You can identify seriousness by observing what he risks. A serious man risks his time, his comfort, his habits, his routines. A bored man risks nothing because boredom requires no sacrifices. Boredom is effortless. Seriousness costs energy, effort, intention. A bored man changes nothing about his life to include you. A serious man restructures his life to make space for you. and he does so without announcing it like a martyr. He simply adjusts. Now, here is the nuance most people ignore. A man who is serious will still frustrate you. He will still disappoint you. He may still be emotionally slow, but he will not be emotionally absent. Absence is the signature of boredom. Presence, imperfect, flawed, human presence, is the signature of seriousness. A bored man evacuates the moment anything becomes emotionally inconvenient. A serious man stays even when staying forces him to grow. But let's not pretend all women can recognize this. Many cannot, because they mistake emotional availability for weakness. They've been trained to romanticize chaos, to see inconsistent men as passionate, to see emotionally negligent men as alpha. There is nothing alpha about a man who lacks discipline over his own impulses. In fact, the men who posture the hardest are often the most fragile. Bored men are rarely grounded. They drift. And drifting is the behavior of weak men, men whose identities change depending on whoever is paying attention to them. Serious men have anchors. Bored men have whims. And whims create emotional casualties. You can always predict a man's level of seriousness by the gravity of his presence. A serious man has weight. You feel him even when he's not speaking, even when he's not performing, because his attention doesn't scatter like seeds tossed into the wind. It gathers, it concentrates, it lands with intention. A bored man, in contrast, has the presence of a soap bubble, reflective, fragile, pretty for half a second, and then gone the moment the air shifts. Some of you have built your entire romantic history around bubbles. No wonder your relationships keep popping. But let's peel back another layer of this. The bored man is not always obvious. Sometimes he's highly charismatic. Sometimes he's attentive in a surface-level way that looks convincing enough to fool anyone who hasn't mastered the art of reading undercurrents. Charisma is his camouflage. Charm is his smoke bomb. He'll make you laugh. He'll speak with intensity. He'll make eye contact like he's scanning the depths of your soul. But notice where he is when things stop being entertaining. Notice where he is when emotional labor appears. Notice where he is when your needs enter the room. When a man is serious, he becomes present in those moments. When he's bored, he becomes a ghost with an iPhone. One of the biggest giveaways is how a man uses time. A bored man hoards his time like a dragon hoards gold, except he hoards it for meaningless distractions. He'll guard his schedule fiercely when it comes to you, yet miraculously become available for anything that offers quick stimulation. Gym, games, outings with his friends who collectively share the intellectual depth of a puddle. If you watch closely, you'll see that a bored man never manages time. He escapes it. A serious man does the opposite. He shapes his time. He manipulates it to fit you into his world, because he understands that connection without consistency is just performance art. And speaking of performance, notice how bored men love to talk about potential. Potential is the currency of men who have nothing real to offer. They speak in futures because their present is empty. A serious man offers you his present, not hypothetical tomorrows decorated with empty promises. A bored man loves phrases like, "We'll see," "one day," "soon," because vagueness protects him from commitment. He can't be held accountable for a timeline he never defined. This is emotional flim-flam at its finest. A serious man moves with clarity. He may not have the whole map, but he draws you into his world one decision at a time. He introduces you to people. He shares his space. He asks questions that show depth. He doesn't need to be prodded like a farm animal to show interest. He behaves as though building something with you is natural, not burdensome. Bored men behave like relationships are chores, like affection is labor, like commitment is a prison sentence and you're the warden waiting to confiscate his last scrap of freedom. And here's a particularly brutal but necessary point. A bored man keeps your conversations shallow on purpose. He avoids emotional depth, like a vampire avoids sunlight. Depth would require vulnerability. Vulnerability would require presence. Presence would require intention. And intention is precisely what he doesn't have. So instead, you get recycled jokes, vague compliments, sexual undertones, and shallow banter. If you try to dive deeper, he changes the subject, or disappears until you forget you ever wanted more. Now compare that to a serious man. A serious man asks questions that reveal he's taking mental notes. He remembers things. He pays attention, not because he's trying to impress you, but because he's genuinely absorbing you. He listens the way a strategist listens, not for entertainment, but for alignment. Men who are serious are not passive observers of connection. They're active participants. But let's be honest. Many of you ignore these signs because you're addicted to the fantasy that your intuition is wrong. You want the bored man to be serious because the bored man is often the one you find most exciting. The excitement isn't attraction, it's uncertainty. You're not drawn to his masculinity. You're drawn to the chaos of not knowing where you stand. Emotional roulette is intoxicating, and bored men spin that wheel beautifully. Serious men don't spin wheels. They draw lines. They define things. They communicate. They don't waste their energy playing games because they're too focused on results. They don't breadcrumb you. They don't drip feed you attention like a neglectful pet owner rationing out kibble. They simply show up. The tragedy is that many women find this stability boring. They confuse seriousness with predictability, and predictability with dullness. But dullness isn't predictability. Dullness is emotional flatness. Predictability is reliability. And reliability is the backbone of every connection that doesn't implode into psychological debris. Let's talk about the ego of the bored man. He tends to think he's irreplaceable, that you'll orbit him indefinitely no matter how little he offers. He believes your attachment is unconditional, and nothing inflates a bored man's ego like a woman who stays too long. His entire sense of importance is built on the women who refuse to cut him off. You become his emotional life support machine, keeping him relevant in a world where his only real accomplishment is convincing someone to tolerate his inconsistency. The women who break this pattern, the ones I personally applaud, are the ones who recognize the power they hold and exercise it coldly, cleanly, without second-guessing. These are the women who treat a man's inconsistency as an immediate disqualification. They don't negotiate with uncertainty. They don't reward mediocrity. They don't tolerate men who act like giving attention is charity work. These women don't chase. They replace. And nothing terrifies a bored man more than a woman who replaces him with the emotional equivalent of a chair, because chairs are more reliable. One of the strongest indicators of seriousness is accountability. A serious man doesn't blame external factors for internal failures. If he messes up, he owns it. If he hurts you, he addresses it. If there's a conflict, he engages with it like an adult. A bored man treats accountability the way cats treat bath time, with pure avoidance and a dramatic performance that makes you feel like you're the aggressor. He'll twist the narrative, minimize your feelings, gaslight you into thinking your expectations are unreasonable. And the worst part? Many women believe this because they're conditioned to think asking for clarity is too much. Here's a rule worth remembering. A man who thinks meeting basic relationship standards is too much is announcing he has nothing to offer. A serious man doesn't see standards as demands. He sees them as structure. Only weak men fear structure because structure exposes their lack of discipline. Another key difference? Serious men think long-term without making it theatrical. They consider how their choices today affect their relationship tomorrow. They don't promise you the moon. They build you the steps to get there. Bored men, on the other hand, speak in romance, but act in chaos. Their words paint beautiful futures. Their actions drag you through emotional swamps. A bored man's emotional palette has only two colors: excitement and avoidance. A serious man has range. He has emotional depth. He knows how to navigate discomfort. He doesn't run when things get complicated. He doesn't shut down when you express needs. He doesn't become distant because the honeymoon period has ended. A serious man doesn't require novelty to stay engaged. Here's another thing most people never admit. Boredom is often rooted in immaturity. Many men have the emotional attention span of toddlers. They don't bond. They attach temporarily. They like newness. They like chase. They like flirtation. Because it requires no emotional labor. Being serious requires internal stability. And stability is something men only develop through discipline, not desire. Women often give bored men far too much credit. You romanticize them. You interpret their lack of seriousness as complexity. You project depth where there is none. But the truth is simple. A bored man isn't complicated. He's just not invested. And a man who isn't invested will never act like he is, unless pretending benefits him. And that brings us to entitlement. The bored man believes he deserves your loyalty without earning it. He believes you should stay available without reciprocity. He expects commitment while offering ambiguity. And the moment you match his energy, he panics. Suddenly, he becomes curious. Suddenly, he becomes attentive. Suddenly, he rediscovers how to communicate. But you need to recognize that this isn't sincerity. It's ego preservation. He's not serious about you. He's serious about not losing access to you. A serious man, in contrast, isn't motivated by fear. He doesn't act out of insecurity. He acts out of intention. You can tell he's serious because there's no emotional whiplash. There are no drastic shifts. There's no sudden romantic revival when he senses you pulling away. His behavior is stable, grounded, deliberate. You could disappear for a week and he wouldn't suddenly chase you out of panic because he never stopped valuing you to begin with. And here's something women rarely admit to themselves. Most confusion only exists because the answer is already no. When a man is serious, you feel it. When he's not, you question it. Doubt is not a neutral emotion. Doubt is data. The fact that you're analyzing whether he's serious is often the sign he isn't. And this brings us to the point most people never want to face. When a man is serious, he creates certainty. When he's bored, he creates confusion. Certainty is a byproduct of intention. Confusion is a byproduct of avoidance. Yet so many women cling to confusion because it allows them to preserve a fantasy. If you admitted he wasn't serious, you'd have to confront the reality that you were investing in someone who was only investing in your availability. And that's the part that stings. Not his disinterest, but your willingness to tolerate it. The harshest truth of all is this. A bored man is not dangerous because he doesn't care. He's dangerous because he cares inconsistently. His attention is unpredictable enough to keep you emotionally malnourished yet hopeful. Hope is the oldest form of manipulation humans ever invented. It keeps you waiting. It keeps you rationalizing. It keeps you loyal to the smallest scraps of affection. If you've ever stayed because he was so sweet last week, you've already tasted this trap. A serious man doesn't use hope as leverage. He uses action. And action isn't always glamorous. It isn't always poetic. Sometimes it looks like small, steady decisions. Showing up when he said he would, remembering what you told him, creating structure instead of chaos. Stability is a love language entirely separate from words. Bored men don't speak that language because boredom is selfish. It's inherently inward-facing. It prioritizes entertainment over connection. You want another uncomfortable sign? Look at how he reacts when you pull back slightly, not as a manipulation, but as a recalibration. If you give a serious man space, he stays present. He may give you breathing room, but he doesn't evaporate. If you give a bored man space, he treats it like a free trial expiring. Suddenly, he's circling back with renewed enthusiasm. This is not a revival of affection. It's a revival of convenience. He misses the function you served in his life, not the connection. Watch how he treats conflict. This is one of the clearest separators between seriousness and boredom. A bored man avoids conflict because conflict requires emotional investment. He disappears, deflects, stonewalls, or twists your concerns into accusations. He treats misunderstandings like personal attacks. A serious man doesn't necessarily enjoy conflict. No one does. But he engages. He cares enough about the connection to face discomfort. When a man is serious, he'd rather resolve the issue than lose the relationship. When he's bored, he'd rather avoid the issue than face himself. But let's address a deeper psychological layer. Some men aren't bored with you. They're bored with themselves. You're simply a mirror reflecting their own stagnation, and instead of facing their internal emptiness, they retreat into behaviors that distance them emotionally. Women often internalize this, assuming they're the problem, when the truth is far simpler. You can't inspire consistency in a man who can't even be consistent with his own life. And men like this love to talk about being busy. Busy is the universal excuse of men who lack emotional discipline. Everyone is busy. Life is busy. Yet the people who care about you make space for you. The people who don't care make excuses. A man who is serious doesn't hide behind busyness. He integrates you into his life rather than shoving you to the margins of it. Here's a secret most people ignore because it sounds too simplistic. Serious men initiate. Bored men react. A serious man initiates conversations, plans, solutions, effort. A bored man only responds to what you bring to him. His energy is reactive, not intentional. You'll notice you're always the one steering the dynamic, initiating plans, holding the rope. If you let go and the rope falls to the ground, that tells you everything you need to know. Now, to pull this all together, you need to understand one principle. A man's seriousness is measured by investment, not intensity. Intensity can be faked. Investment can't. Investment is revealed through adaptation. How he adjusts his life, his habits, his decisions to create space for you. If nothing in his life changes as he gets closer to you, he's not serious. If his routines stay identical, his circle stays identical. His priorities stay identical. Then you are not integrated into his world. You're orbiting it. But let me be clear. None of this is about blaming men. This is about empowering women to stop entertaining men whose interest is as unstable as their attention span. You are not confused because he's complex. You are confused because you want him to be something he's not. If you learn to observe rather than interpret, everything becomes brutally obvious. Men are not subtle creatures. Their behavior reveals them with astonishing clarity. The problem isn't that men hide. The problem is that women romanticize what's right in front of them. So here's your final truth. A serious man builds with you. A bored man floats near you. A serious man commits through action. A bored man entertains through moments. A serious man creates safety. A bored man creates doubt. And if you're feeling doubt right now, you already have your answer. If you made it this far, you're clearly someone who values clarity over delusion. So go ahead and hit subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. Because I promise you, I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to wake you up. And tell me in the comments, which sign hit you the hardest? Which one made you rethink someone in your life? If you want deeper transformation, actual structure, actual internal strategy, actual results, check the pinned comment. That's where you'll find the one-on-one coaching option. Women who work with me directly get a level of precision, accountability, and psychological insight they can't find anywhere else. If you want to stop repeating patterns and start choosing from power instead of panic, that's where you go. The landing page is already done and linked in the description and pinned comment. You'll find a free PDF, a free video, and access to the newsletter, because the breakdowns I send there are even more unfiltered than what I can put publicly. And if you're ready for the real shift, pre-order The Feminine Game. The courses on the landing page will show you exactly why the women who master this work never go back to tolerating half-interest men again. Now go figure out which category your man falls into and adjust your energy accordingly.